Hello again. We are here with your weekly live about how to become a high value woman. And Ruth is going to be joining me today again. And we're waiting for her to come on. But just before we get to her, while we're waiting for her to jump on, we've been talking about high value women. And I want to make sure that you understand that we are not telling you that you are not a high value woman now, because you probably are. If you are watching this, you're a high value woman already. But we are just talking about presenting ourselves in the world. Okay. The way that we want to. We want to make sure that we are presenting ourselves to the world in our truth. So the way that we want to present ourselves. Hi, Ruth.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. I hope that this sound works because now it just kicked off my Bluetooth.
Oh,
So I'm be having all kinds of feedback.
oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it to me, but
Okay.
we'll see what the recording looks like when it's on Zoom.
Okay.
So the topic that we have today that we're going to talk about today is becoming a high value woman through your intentional messaging to yourself and others. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of teaching today.
That feeling of being
if you have
scared
questions,
and
pop them in the
vulnerable,
comments. Even if you're watching the replay of this video, you can pop them in the comments and it will notify Ruth and I, and we will have this conversation as we go. So if you're not here live, that's totally fine. You can still pop your questions in the chat, in the comments, and have a discussion with us, or your comments, even questions or comments. So today I want to talk to you about internal messaging and why it's important, and why we are going to talk about that being part of being a high value woman. So internal messaging is basically your beliefs about yourself. So what that means is a belief is just a sentence or a thought or a story that you repeat to yourself over and over and over until it becomes a belief. That's how we get beliefs. It's just a thought or a sentence or a story that we kind of grab onto, and we just keep continuing to tell it to ourselves. And then pretty soon it's part of our belief system. So we do this all the time with all the things. We do it with, what we believe about money, what we believe about politics, what we believe about families, what we believe about people in general. Like, we just do it all over the place, right? We have beliefs about everything. So some of our beliefs are intentional, that we have decided intentionally to believe, and then some of them are offered to us, and we either accept them or we don't necessarily accept them, but they're prominent. And that would be like stuff that our moms told us about, let's say, style, or about our bodies, right? So the reason why it's important to distinguish between the intentional beliefs that we have created on our own and the ones that have been offered to us is because most of the things that we believe have been offered to us about ourselves and about women in general. Those beliefs have been offered to us, and we've either accepted them and taken them on as things that we like, that we want to continue to believe. And then some of them are things that we believe that we don't really actually like, and that we don't really want to believe about ourselves. But it's kind of just given to us and it's around us. It's like a construct that just is in the world, and we're not really sure how to get out of that, right? And I think that's kind of what we're talking about with high value women, right, Ruth? Is that there's stuff out there that's been given to us as women that maybe we don't like or don't agree with, but we don't really know what to do with it, right? And so that's why the internal messaging is so important, because whether we like it or agree with it, or whether we don't, it's still in our heads and rattling around in there, that unnoticed, like it kind of on default, like doing its thing, and we don't really even realize it's there. So that's why I wanted to bring this concept to our Facebook Live today, because I don't think that we realize that there's a lot of internal messaging going on that is then being shown to the world on our bodies. Right? And that is something that I mean, I'm a style coach. Like, I'm working with people creating their style and figuring out their body shapes and, different things like that. And some people realize that what they think about themselves shows up on the outside of their body, but most women don't really. And so the thing that I wanted to talk about today is what you think about yourself shows up in the way that you present yourself to the world. It shows up in how you care for yourself in all of the ways, whether it's, exercise and fitness, whether it's dental hygiene, whether it's hair and makeup, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, whether it's the car you drive, the house you live in, it shows up on the outside of who you are and how you present yourself to the world. So how do we change or create that belief on purpose, that message on purpose? Okay. So the first thing, I have a couple of little things I'm going to give you that are like tactical, do this thing to create this thing, right? And the first thing that you need to do is notice that that's even happening. Notice that that's happening for you and it's happening for everybody else around you. Is we have thoughts and stories and sentences in our head about ourselves that create how we show up in the world and how we show up in the way that we dress and in the way that we take care of ourselves. So just notice what's happening in your own brain that is creating that for you. Okay. And that would be like just becoming aware of what you're thinking about yourself. Ask yourself, what do I think about myself? And you could get really specific, which I recommend that you do. What do I think about my style? What do I think about the way I look to myself, the way that I present myself to the world? What do I think about my hairstyle? Like, because we're talking about health, or we're talking about style. Excuse me. But if you want to ask yourself, what do I think about the way I take care of my body as far as health goes? What do I think about, the way that I parent my kids? Like, you can do it with whatever you want. But for the purposes of this live, I really want us to focus on what you think about yourself and your style specifically. Okay. So what sentences and stories and things come up when you ask yourself that question? And I want you to write them down. Uh-oh, I lost Ruth. I'm going
to present first. Okay. So what sentences and stories
and I want you to write it down.
You ask yourself that.
The reason that I want you to write it down is because writing it down is part of the process of changing that. If it's a thing that you don't want to believe, like a sentence that you don't want to believe, it's the process of changing that. And it's the process that you'll need to go through in order to create something new. You need to write it down. So I resisted this in the beginning, that I didn't want to write it down, because for me, and I don't know if this is for you, Ruth, you can chime in on this if you want. But for me, if I wrote it down, then two things might happen. One, somebody else might read it, and maybe I don't want someone to know whatever it is that I thought about myself, right? Because I was ashamed of how I thought about myself. So I didn't want someone else to read it. And then two, if I wrote it down, then it would actually be true. Those were the two things that I was afraid of when I first started going through coach training and learning about figuring out what's going on in my head. So Ruth, what do you think about writing down the thoughts that you have about yourself on paper?
I'm actually a fan of it. I didn't realize that I always did it. Was probably one of the main reasons I stayed sane, is because I would journal. Right. And I just thought it was like, a teenager or, a college student. I was just journaling because that's what you do. Like in my religion, we really, really encourage journaling. But then when I got into college, then just psychologically they encouraged it. But when I stopped journaling when I had kids, it was one of the pieces to when I fell apart. And I think part of that is I didn't have that accountability to my thoughts. But that was also one of my other thoughts that I had was, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to sit and think about my thoughts. Like, what a selfish little teenage thing to do. But what it is, when you write it down, you see it. And it's accountability. Like, that's scary to think that way. Or that's cool. I didn't think of it that way. So I'm a big fan of it, even though I haven't always done it. And even still, I used to be in the habit every day. And then, baby number probably 1.5 came along and I got out of the habit. But I could probably say that's one of the correlations of when I started to go downhill, is when I no longer had that ritual of checking in with myself. And I always thought that it was I was recording it for my posterity. So I would say I journaled differently then than I do now, and that's probably one of the reasons why I stopped journaling, is because I didn't want, I wasn't worried about my husband reading it or my sister reading it, because they were, not around, but I was worried about how my posterity would judge me or see me oh my gosh, Mama's such a whiner. Mom can't get her crap together. So that's probably one of the reasons why I put it away. But now I do it differently, where I don't keep it. I throw it away. But I still have accountability for my thoughts. So I think it's huge, even though I am not great at doing it all the time anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it is 100% accountability to ourselves about what we're thinking, because our thoughts are our business. We are in complete control of our thoughts. Now, I'm talking about someone who is not on medication for mental illness, where you have things happening in your brain that you can't control. So if that's your situation, then please, please, please talk to your therapist and your doctor and get the help that you need for that. I am 100% on board with psychotherapy and medications and all of that to help us keep control of what's going on in our brains. But there again, that is your responsibility to go to the doctor and seek help. If you have stuff going on in your mind that is scary to you, then it is your responsibility to seek help. So I just want to put that caveat in there. So for those of us who are trying to grow our, capacity to create awesomeness, right? To create great things in the world, whether it's in our families, well, and most of it, that's the reason that we're doing it, is to benefit our families, right? It is a really good idea to write down your thoughts, the thoughts that you have, just on a daily basis. And what that looks like for me is I just sit down and I just start writing what I'm thinking. Just start writing whatever it is that is in my head. And it evolves into what is, bugging me in my mind. What is the deep kind of subconscious stuff that I'm not super aware of will come out as I start writing down the things that I'm aware of. Okay. So the next step that you want to do. So the first thing is you're going to want to be aware. So notice what's going on in your head and then write it down and see what's coming up. And then the second step is you're going to look at what you've written down and ask yourself if it's true. So is that the things that you wrote down true? Now we're going to go with the through the lens of style, because that's what my jam is. And I help women try to unwind what's going on in their brains because they want to dress better. When people come to me, it's because they want to dress better and they want they want my brain on their wardrobe and how to make their wardrobe work for them for not, not have to buy an entire new wardrobe, right? And so when we are journaling what we think about ourselves, it's going to be a lot of judgment on our bodies and judgment on our position in the world, like whether we're a mom or whether we're not, or whether we're a working person or whether we're not, like that's usually what comes up. Okay. So when you write down your thoughts that are in your head and you ask yourself if it's true, you're going to say that it is, because we all think that the thoughts that we have in our heads are true. Like we all think that that's the truth. You're not the only one. So my lens to that, or my tool, shall we say, of whether we know it's true or not, is, would your best friend agree with you? So if you put down, I'm just fat, that's what, like that's my problem, is that I'm fat. Would your best girlfriend agree with you? Would she tell you that that's what your problem is that you're fat? Probably not. And if she did, she's not your best friend, right? So would your best friend tell you the things that you wrote down on your piece of paper? Would she agree with you? And would she tell you those things? And
I want to push back on that. She might agree with you, but she might be more tactful in how she said it.
Exactly.
Right. Because, I mean, weight is a health thing.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty can be in the eye of the beholder, but health is a weight thing and it affects all things. So one of the things I want to talk about later on some of the other calls is like truth, being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things. If your friend loves you and she cares about you, would she agree and let you know in a tactful way?
And that is the point, is would she say you're fat? No, she would not say that. She might say, I'm worried about your health. That's something that someone who loves you might say. But did you write that down in your paper? I'm worried about my health? Probably not. You probably wrote down, I'm fat. There's a difference. There's a different feeling that happens when you say to yourself, I'm fat, than if you say, I'm worried about my health. Those are two different emotions that you're going to get. And our emotions is what drives the actions that we take. How we feel is how we show up. How we feel determines the actions that we take. So if the feeling is judgment and shame, then you're going to go get a cookie. That is going to lead you to the action of getting a cookie. But if you say, I'm worried about my health, then that might bring up concern. And concern is probably not going to have you getting a cookie. Concern is probably going to have you getting curious about how you can be healthier. Do you see the difference? So that's what I want you to decipher, is how your girlfriend would say it to you. It would probably be in a more tactful, loving way. Good to know. I would take her thoughts over my own, because my own are laden with judgment and shame. And that isn't going to push me to wearing sweats and a sweatshirt and leggings to the graduation instead of a dress, or, something that would make me feel a little bit better about myself. Right. So, and then the third thing is, once you've kind of figured out and got some awareness around what is you're putting down on your paper, the third thing that I want you to think about is, what do you want to think about yourself? If I had a magic wand and you could think anything about yourself without a whole bunch of shame and a whole bunch of judgment and a whole bunch of baggage, what would that be? Write it down. Writing it down, we've already talked about, is a crucial step to this process, writing it down. Because once you have gone through noticing and then writing it down and then asking yourself if it's true, and then tapping into maybe what your best friend would think, there's something that happens in your brain, and you start to turn your brain to the side that can create something better for you, which is in this prefrontal cortex part of your brain, that is going to be a lot nicer than what your back part of your brain is offering you with the I'm fat business. Okay. So it's really, really, really important in step 3 of what you want to think that you write that down, because that is what you're going to redirect your brain to when nonsense starts happening again, because it will. Okay. Then the 4th and final thing, once you write those things down that you want to think about yourself, where in your life do you already think that about yourself? In what areas of your life do you already think that about yourself? Okay, so I'm going to give you an example because I don't really, I can't really come up with stuff myself when I'm learning something. I need an example. Okay, so I didn't think of one beforehand. I was going to think of one on the fly. So let me think about something on the fly. Okay, this is one that I practice a lot. Okay, so one of the things that I frequently write down in my journal is that I'm a bad mom. Okay, how many people are with me on constantly thinking I'm a bad mom? Okay. So I write down all the things that I did that were wrong, and I'm such a bad mom because of all these things that I should be doing that I'm not. And, you know, so-and-so is the best mom ever, and she does all these things. And so, you know, those are the things I should do. Right. And I write all this garbage down that I'm not a good mom. Right. And I go through and I like, are those things true? Well, I would like to do some of these things that I'm not doing. If I'm honest with myself, I would like to be doing some of the things that I'm not doing. Okay, I'm going to make a list of things that I would like to be doing. Okay, those are good things for me to hang on to, right? But then I go through and think, would my best friend say that I'm a bad mom in these ways that I wrote down? She's not going to say that. She's not going to say I'm a bad mom. She's going to point out all of the things that I do that are great and awesome, right? Oh, perfect. She would point those things out to me. That is great. What do I think she would say? And so that is the number 3. What do I want to believe about me being a good mom? What would she say? Okay. So she would say that I'm a good mom because one of the things that I do for my kids is I give them a candy bar bouquet on their birthdays. So they get this big, giant, you know, candy bar bouquet that's in a little basket thing with a whole bunch of their favorite candies and gift cards to their favorite restaurants and you know, whatever, right? So that's one of their birthday gifts is I do a candy bar bouquet. So and I've done this for the last couple of years. It's one of the things that my kids love the most, but I just do it. Like I mean, it's fun for me to do. And so I don't think that I'm the greatest mom in the world because I give my kids a candy bar bouquet. Like, I don't think that. But I can't tell you how many people have told me, you are such a good mom for doing that for your kids. I bet they love that. And every time I do it, my husband tells me, you're such a good mom. You do that for your kids, and that is so awesome. They love that. You're such a good mom. And so I'm going to write on number 3, you know, the things that I think my friend is going to say to me. And then I remember, you know what? I do that candy bar bouquet thing. And I am a good mom when I do that candy bar bouquet. Like that's something that's fun for me. And I think they like it. They tell me that they do. They talk about it all the time. They're like, am I going to get a candy bar? Like it's a thing, but I forget that because to me, it's just fun for me, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to be a good mom. Let's do a candy bar bouquet. That's not what I think. And so number 4 is, in what ways am I already a good mom? I do the candy bar bouquet. Okay, I do that, and that's fun for me. And then my husband tells me all the time that our bedtime routine that we have with our kids, he just thinks it's the best thing ever that I do. And he's like, you really should give yourself credit for that. The bedtime routine that you have with the kids, going in and scratching their back and telling them how much you love them and giving them snuggles and whatever that I do every night. He's like, you're a good mom. Okay. I'm going to, that's one of the ways I'm a good mom. So I'm redirecting my brain to the ways that I'm already achieving the thing that I think I'm not achieving in this area. Okay. So if you can do that and keep that as a practice that you can do daily, I mean, ultimately we want to do it daily, is write down the things that we don't like about ourselves or the things that are going on in our lives that we don't like, notice them and ask if they're true. What would our best friend or our husband or, someone that really loves us, what would they say? What do we want to think about that situation? And then how is that actually already showing up in our lives already? We are already creating it. Because then you can always 10x something you're already doing. Right?
Or you can piggyback off of it.
Yep.
Easier to add habits to things you're already doing than to just start clean slate, especially if you're starting with the idea of I suck at everything. I'm not starting from anywhere. Everything has to go.
Right. And if we're talking about style, how many people do you think tell me I don't have the money for an entirely new wardrobe, and so that's why I can't work with you? Guess what, my friends? We are not getting a whole new wardrobe. There has been not one single person that I've worked with in a year and a half that has needed an entire new wardrobe.
I think I might have.
There were a few things that you had.
I had pajamas.
There were a few.
I think I needed an entire new wardrobe. That's where I was. Maybe I had one shirt.
I think you had one or two shirts, or maybe you had gone and gotten them before you really specifically said, should I go get these things? And so I thought that they were things you already had. That may have been the case.
Yeah, I think I was wearing clothes, but when I replaced my clothes, those all left.
Okay. But I think you might have been in a place where you had done some work beforehand that you were like, I'm getting rid of these clothes. These are on their way out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Most people come to me and they're like, oh no, she's going to make me get rid of all my clothes and I'm not going to have anything to wear. And that's not where we start. We always start with, what are your favorite clothes that you find yourself wearing all of the time? That's where we start. And then we decide, we get really good clarity on why we like those things. Why are those things the things that we wear over and over and over? What are the reasons? And maybe some of those reasons you like, and maybe some of those reasons you don't, but it's good to know what the reasons are, because you can't go anywhere if you don't know where you are. Right. So a lot of people think that we're going to have to get an entire new wardrobe if you start working with me as your style coach. And that's just not that's not what we're going to do. We're going to get clarity on what you already have. And then we're going to start a shopping list of things that you want to add. And then you get to add those as time and money pertains to that. Right. Yeah. So
I think that mentality, because I have the mentality, it's called the perfection mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do it. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do it right. And if I can't do it all, then the little pieces that I can do don't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, that's the mentality, is like, I need an entire wardrobe. If I'm going to look good every day, then I need a new shirt for every day. Mm-hmm. Instead of like, I just want to feel good on this one occasion or this one incident or in this one theme.
Mm-hmm.
Start there.
Yeah. And honestly, that's a few of my clients. I've told them, okay, we're going to just focus on one day of the week. What day of the week do you want that to be? A lot of people pick Sunday because Sunday is the day that we kind of dress up. And so we have clothes for that usually. Right. And so if that's where it's easy to start, then that's where we need to start, is where it's easy. Right. We don't want to start where it's hard. If you have
rewarding.
Yes.
I would say you do church or work because it's more rewarding, because there's such a big social feedback. And we love that as social creatures. Mm-hmm. We love that social feedback. If we can get 5 people to be like, hey, she looks different. She looks good today. It's different than us all by ourselves in the house with the kids. It's just, it's important to get to that place where just you all by yourself can just be like, yeah, I look good. But it's easier. It's more rewarding when you have more
Yeah, and it's
positive.
and it's human nature to need validation.
Yeah.
Like it is actual human nature to need validation. And that's not something that's a bad thing. We were programmed and built that way. So it's not that it's a bad thing to dress for other people or dress because you want whatever feedback from other people. That's not necessarily bad. It's just, is that the only thing you're seeking? And you aren't giving yourself a say in what you're doing and saying and how you're showing up, because we're social creatures. Like you said, it is normal for us to want validation, and that's where we start. But once you start working with me as your style coach, and we start talking about what validation are you seeking and who are you seeking it from, what are the reasons, then we start to get clear on why we're doing the things we're doing. And sometimes we don't even like those people that we're seeking validation from. But yet we run around in circles trying to get validation from people we don't even like. And it's just interesting. It's just interesting for my clients when they see that. And when I ask them, who are the people? It's, people from high school, or it's, somebody that gave them criticism before, or somebody that they don't even like. I'm like, well, we could just not really care about what they think of us because you don't really like them anyway. My brother says,
Well, again, like last week when we asked the question of what did they do to merit a vote in your life?
yes, exactly. Right.
Why did they get real estate?
Right. My brother tells me if I wouldn't seek advice, then I'm not going to listen to criticism.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't seek advice from these people, then why would you accept criticism from them? So think about that. Okay. I had a thought and then it left, so it must have not needed to be said. It'll come back. Okay. So the next thing is, let's see, let me get to my notes. How you think and feel about yourself shows up on the outside, but only always. How you
Always,
only always. How you feel about yourself is how you take care of yourself. It is how you get dressed. And this is how I know it's true, because it happens in my own brain. Every single morning when I wake up and I go in my closet to decide what I'm going to wear, I want to wear a sweatshirt and leggings. Every day. Every day I go in my closet. Oh, is today the day I can wear sweatshirts and leggings? Because that's just what I want, because I'm tired. I just woke up. I'm sleepy. Maybe I'm cold, because usually I am, and I just want to be warm. And so that's how I'm feeling in the moment. And so that's what I want to wear, is a sweatshirt and leggings and fuzzy socks. And every morning I tell myself, I know that would be so fun to just wear sweatshirts and leggings today. But what do you have on your schedule today? What are you doing today? And what do you need to be wearing? And what are you going to feel the most confident in while you're doing those activities today? And I think, okay, today I have client calls. And so I need to be dressed for my client calls. And so then I know that leads me to a place in my closet for those clothes. And then I think, how do I want to feel today? How do I want to feel when I'm on my client calls? Well, this morning, I wanted to feel light and cool because it's warm here finally. And so I wore this shirt because it's got holes in it and it's kind of airy. And so it's not very warm. I don't wear this in the winter because it's too cold, right? So this is the shirt that I picked because that's how I wanted to feel today. Not how do I feel in the moment. What's that?
It's very cute, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Not how I'm feeling in the moment right now, but how I want to feel when I'm on the calls with my clients. Okay? Because how you feel on the inside is how you're going to show up. So if you want to feel confident, then you need to generate that feeling inside. or you need to do something, create something that's going to help you feel that way, whether that's clothes, whether that's food, whether that's movement, whether that's a shower, like it doesn't matter. Do for yourself what is going to create that feeling. Okay. So I would say probably 3 times a month, I actually am in a sweatshirt and leggings. But that's what I want to wear every single day. Every single day. That's how I feel when I wake up in the morning. That's what I want to wear. So it's important for you to know that, because I look like this most of the time. That is not how I want to feel. And that's not how I want to look when I very first wake up in the morning. It is a conscious, intentional thing that I've created for myself. So our thoughts create our feelings, and then our feelings is how we show up in the world. And then how we show up in the world creates the results that we have, right?
I have a couple of examples from my life that I'm thinking of. One is old and one is recent.
Okay.
Okay, so my grandma did really well with money. And in her old age, she had made the decision that she wanted to spend the money together as a family rather than have her kids fight over it when she died. Like, she watched too many people do that. So she, did stuff like she bought us LASIK surgery, and she took us on, we would have family vacations pretty much every month. And like all of her kids, all of her grandkids. And one of the times she took us on a cruise to somewhere in the Caribbean. And I think I had my 20th birthday on the cruise. And usually the last night of your cruise, they do a formal night. Right? Anybody who's on a cruise, you have a formal night. So I brought my little prom dress or whatever, and I have always hated formal events because I feel so out of place. I like, the story in my head is I'm just a country girl, right? Like, I bale hay and I feed cows and I like clean bathrooms, like that's right. Like, so to go to prom, it just feels so far out of me. Like, all of high school, I was like mascara, maybe ponytail. That was me. So these formal events, it just showed me how out of place I was. And then it also, like, you step into the appearance. So then as a girl, it was just like you stand in the mirror and now you have to critique yourself, right? You have this idea of what women in formal gowns are supposed to look like. So if you don't look like that idea in your head, now it's like the scene from Mean Girls where you're like, my shoulders are too big and my elbows are too whatever, my neck is too, like the whole thing. So to me, those formal events are getting nice, or even sometimes church, when it was like, now you have to like up your appearance. To me, it was connected to like, now you just have to like feel all that crap that you feel when you look in the mirror. Okay, so I had this dress. I don't remember the dress at all, but we have the pictures. And I just remember like fussing about it and being so frustrated. Like, I'm a 20-year-old woman. Like, I should be, cute. And just, I went into the dining room finally after I stopped fussing. And my sister leaned over to me and she said, Ruth, you actually look really pretty if you would just sit up and stop being so grumpy. But like in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, they're just gonna look at me like Ruth is such a girl. She's trying to play dress up and she looks really stupid and this is out of place and she's gained 5 pounds, like whatever it is that my thoughts were going. And so I was like, I don't want to be here. This is stupid. So for her to say that, I was like, okay, fine. And I look back at the pictures and I can say, you did actually like super cute, honey. Like, why were you beating yourself up? But just all that standard. Okay, then the more recent one was, it was just, let's see, my husband got home. He's been gone all month and he just got home Saturday night, super late. So Sunday, it was yesterday. So yesterday morning, I got ready for church, just my normal routine. And I came downstairs and my kids gasped. And I was like, what's happening? And my 8-year-old, she started dancing and she was like, Mom, I don't know what it is, but when Dad is around, you always look more beautiful. Yeah. And it's because I either I try more or he just makes me feel more beautiful. But it's not like I added eyeliner. I didn't put on extra lipstick. Like, I've worn the outfit 100 times. Like, I don't have fancy makeup. Like, I just have my routine that I can manage because that's what I know how. And it showed up like and it shows up enough that my 8-year-old could see a pattern. And I think that's cool.
That is awesome. And it is evidence that humans seek patterns, and we notice patterns even at the young age of 8, which is why this conversation about high value women is so important. It is so important. That is why Ruth and I have made a commitment to show up here every week to talk about it, because this is how important it is. Little 8-year-old girls are seeing patterns in their moms. And
Yeah.
if we don't understand that we are creating that for them, then we are creating something unintentionally. And I don't want to do that. I
And
want to
for me,
create.
sorry, the deep part for me is, so there's two things that I'm like fighting with my daughters, or like inside. I'm just fighting inside. So my oldest daughter doesn't want to have kids. She's 14. She doesn't want to have kids. I'm just trusting this because she's 14, but I know that part of it is because I have made motherhood look undesirable. And then the satisfying part about what my daughter observed is I'm sending the message that being a wife is beautiful. It can make you happy. It can, right? So it's kind of this internal messaging stuff. It shows up more than just like it's a domino effect to what kind of messages you're sending. The tiny message of I don't deserve a nice shirt, or it's not, my time isn't worth it to spend 15 minutes curling my hair. Like I'm not worth the 15 minutes. These little messages build up to things like motherhood is beautiful, or motherhood is undesirable. You just get fat and frumpy and ugly and bottom of the tier, or like being a wife is just drama and prison and like, right? So it's all of these little messages that you send yourself that people are observing to the point where it's like being a wife makes you beautiful.
And you know what? We think that what we think inside of our mind is our own and nobody knows.
Yeah, it's like a victimless crime kind of thing.
But I'm here to tell you, and you just created evidence for it, that what we think is created. And other people see it. Now, your 8-year-old is beyond her years and could verbalize that when dad's around, you're more beautiful. But there's most other 8-year-old little girls that don't have the language for that, but they know what they feel. They just can't put it into words. And what they feel, then they start acting on that. And if they feel like it's not good, then that is a pattern that they're going to start in their lives, right? So that is so awesome that she was able to verbalize that and that she noticed it. That is awesome. It's exactly what we are talking about. You know, our kids are watching us. Who do we want to be for our kids? Who do we want to be for ourselves? What's the legacy that we want to create for ourselves and our families, right? Okay, so let's see. This is where I want to start talking about the message that this is a perfect segue to the message that we give to other women. So we talked about this hierarchy within women, not hierarchy meaning men against women. That's not the hierarchy I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hierarchy that we have with ourselves as women, as a group. Okay. And we teach each other how to be. And we teach each other as women what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And what we say about ourselves to other women tells them what's acceptable for themselves. And what I mean by that is, for instance, if I'm a mom and I'm constantly having conversations with other women, or even around my daughters, I don't have girls, but I have nieces. So I'm going to say around my nieces, right? About how I hate my belly that has loose skin or a pooch from having babies. The message that I'm sending to those girls and to those other women is that it is not acceptable to have loose skin and a pooch from having babies. Because I'm constantly telling others and myself and talking about it with other women, with daughters, about how unacceptable that is and how I need to get rid of it And then I go on all the things to try to get rid of it, or to try to camouflage it, to try to cover it up. And that is sending a message to my peers, to my daughters, to my nieces, that my body is not okay, and neither is yours. If this happens to you, it's not okay. And that has got to be reframed. We've got to change that message. We have got to, I mean, there's a whole big movement about self-love and love yourself and all that, which I am in. I'm in. But I also want to make sure that we are actually loving ourselves, that we're not just telling ourselves that we love ourselves and then letting ourselves go, because we love ourselves, and we can just eat the popcorn and the Cheez-Its because we love ourselves. No, if we truly love ourselves, then we take care of ourselves, and we put nice things on our bodies. We do nice things to our bodies. We drink lots of water, and we move our bodies, and we care about how flexible we are, and we care about, going to the eye doctor so that we can see. Like, those are the things that we do when we care about ourselves. And when we have loose skin and a pooch, we're kind to ourselves. Maybe we eat salad to lessen the pooch because that's good for our health, but not our framing and our words need to be around being healthy, not around having children gave me an undesirable body. Because I think those are two messages that are different from each other.
I think the core of that message, I've been super lucky that I haven't fallen into this piece of motherhood, but the idea that children have ruined my life. They've ruined my body.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that, like, frustration with your body is your child has ruined your body. But a healthier message, even if you don't, like, I know some people, they don't love their stretch marks. I'm actually one of the women that I'm proud of my stretch marks because I see it as, it's my battle scars.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because I've hung around so many women who have not successfully had healthy babies, like they're, the success of having that miracle hasn't happened for them in the way that we think. And so I think sometimes we find ourselves in entitlement. Like, every woman gets to have babies. It's just part of, even it's something that we must bear.
Mm-hmm.
The miracle of having babies is something that we must bear. So even if you can't get to the point where you love your scars, where you're like grateful for them, working toward that way of, like, if you're, because it's part of that thought, like, what thought would I like to have? A thought to replace it would be, well, that's my battle scar.
Mm-hmm.
At least I can be grateful to my body that it did it, or like amazed at my body.
Mm-hmm.
You're a freaking human.
Mm-hmm.
You had a human inside of your belly, and
Mm-hmm.
you didn't explode or break. I swear, I always swore I was going to be the first lady to have a spontaneous C-section because I was so freaking big. I have big babies, right? And just the fact that I could do that, that's superhuman power. That's amazing. So just replacing those thoughts, but like, just being aware of all the basis of those thoughts is, this child ruined my something. Ruined.
Mm-hmm.
It came in and, like, wasn't supposed to be a ruined it. Instead of, that's the design. That's amazing. Whether or not you want to call it beautiful, because again, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but at least fit something else that you can do, gratitude or amaze or
Mm-hmm.
something. Because again, when you start from something that you do have, then you can build towards something that you want.
Yes.
But I like that.
Yeah. And I think this whole conversation about being a high value woman is really getting intentional and clear and focused and aware of what our woman body does for us and how amazing and wonderful it is in all of the ways. And we reframe our whole language and everything we say around that, and how blessed we are to be women and what women's bodies do. Now, my woman's body doesn't do having babies very well. It didn't do it for a really long time. I had 10 years of infertility and losing babies and all the things. So if you're one of those out there that's like, yeah, well, I don't have kids because my body doesn't do that. Like, I'm there with you, sister. My body didn't do it very well either. It was a really big struggle for me. That was one of the trials of having a human body for me, was that my female organs that regenerate babies didn't work very well. I had to jump through lots of hoops and do lots of things to get my kids here. And so I get it, right? But there are so many other things that our bodies do as women that are just magic. They're just magical. And in the business world where I'm building my business, a lot of people will say, well, if I didn't have kids, I'd be able to build my business. Or if I didn't have kids, I'd be able to, do that event. Or if I didn't have kids, I'd be able to fill in the blank, right? That's something that we hear a lot. And it's always kind of not felt good in my body, but I just didn't really know why until I really started to think about it. I really asked myself. And now I say, if I didn't want to be a mom, then maybe I would be able to be farther along in my business. If I didn't want to be a mom, then maybe I would be able to make that event happen. Because I don't ever want my kids to walk in on a conversation with it starting if I didn't have kids. Because I never want to send the message to them that they aren't wanted, because I worked dang hard to get them here. We went through a lot of stuff, and those of you who know me know my story. And I don't ever want any of my kids to feel like they weren't wanted, because there were years of tears trying to get my kids here. I want to be a mom, and then everything else comes second. So I want them to hear, if I didn't want to be a mom, then I would do XYZ. But I want to be a mom, so I'm not. Right? So
Well, some of that messaging also is the idea that, again, we have that male and female hierarchy. That messaging is saying that the male hierarchy is more valuable than the female hierarchy, because that's what men do. Men go to work and men have big events, right? Like they just go for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours away from their home and do their magic.
mm-hmm,
And we keep saying, if really what we're saying is, if I wasn't a woman,
mm-hmm,
then I could do it the way men do it.
mm-hmm,
But as women, we get to figure out how to do it the way women do it.
mm-hmm.
Like,
And still be just as awesome.
I have kids. I'm sure you can probably hear my kids. I have children and I'm still doing stuff. So it looks differently, but is the deep messaging, like maybe that's something to call out, is that deep messaging that you have? Do you have that deep messaging that men are better than women?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And then,
because
like really, maybe those are some thoughts you have to work through.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, it is like, sometimes I do get very envious of my husband that he can just be like, I have this dream, bye.
Mm-hmm.
He never has to worry about what's going to happen with his kids, because he's married somebody that, like, he's married the best babysitter, right? Like, I'm not a babysitter, I'm the mom, but like, I have to find a babysitter when I want to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't. He picked the person on the planet who is going to care about them and sacrifice everything for them. He never has to worry for 1 second, what do I do with my kids? Whereas for me, that's my number one, right? Like, it's, what do I do with my kids? But you just figure it out, because that children, that nurturing, that like blessing the next generation, like that is womanhood. That's the female hierarchy. That's how we are useful to everything. That's where all of our like gifts shine. So messaging around that is really important, because if you ever start to, again, you can't cross over. Once you start to cross over, that's when we get like, because you cannot. So you're just beating yourself against a brick wall. So if your messaging is telling you in any kind of a way, you have to do it the man way, then of course you're going to be frustrated.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And I think that, like, I don't ever wonder how I'm going to get money to pay groceries, ever. I never think that, but I guarantee you that is the first thing that on my husband's mind when he pops his eyes open in the morning. is I've got to make sure that we have money to run this house, to run this family, you know? And I'm so grateful that he has taken on his divine role to take care of our family. I have no problem taking on my divine role to raise our children. And I think that open communication is where we have to start, of what our roles are. And then we have to take responsibility for our roles that are given by God. And they're not roles I'm giving you, Sherry Brasher. They are roles that we've been given by God, right? And they're wonderful, both of them. The last few years that my husband and I have, I don't know, our relationship has just gone to the next level than the last couple of years because we've done this work. Like, I celebrate him as a man and he celebrates me as a woman, and it gives me goosebumps. It creates the most synergistically powerful relationship between a husband and a wife when we can celebrate each other for our God-given roles. It is magical and it's hard. And I'm not going to say it was easy, because it was hard. It came with a lot of hard things first, right? But because we're committed to each other and to our family and to our beliefs and all of that, we did some hard stuff to get to where we are. And we're still doing hard stuff. We're still, creating that. So anyways, I could go off on a tangent on relationships, but I won't. I'll leave that for another day. We can do becoming a high value woman in your relationships, and I can go there. But the last thing that I want to say to end our live is these are the things that are not useful beliefs or stories or sentences or thoughts. I'm going to give you the ones that are the most predominant that I hear from my clients, like on the daily, and we have got to stop it. So if you are hearing yourself say any of these things, then you need to reach out to me so that I can give you some better thoughts to have, some better beliefs to have. Okay. So I'm just a mom. It doesn't matter what I wear. I don't want to spend a lot of money on clothes. I don't have anywhere to go. No one sees me anyway. The clothes out there aren't made for me. I don't want to look like a teenager. If you find yourself saying any of those things, open up this app that you're on right now and send me a message that says, Sherry, I have unhelpful thoughts about myself. Please help. And I will help you. I will give you some better thoughts to think.
She will help you. She's wonderful.
I will help you through that, because those are unhelpful thoughts. They are not getting you where you want to be. They are not helping you create confidence. And all you have to do is just start changing. Just start turning your beliefs just ever so slightly with some of the things that we've talked about in this live, and you will start to feel better about yourself. So, Ruth, do you have any final comments?
Maybe one, because what you're saying, so your thoughts create your beliefs create your actions, and your actions determine who you become.
Your thoughts create your feelings.
Oh yeah, your thoughts create your feelings.
And then your feelings drive your actions.
Okay.
How you feel is how you act.
Okay.
And then your actions create your life and who you become.
Okay. And then me on the money side, or the other way, is so it's kind of like a cycle, because then who you are, or like what you're doing, then gives you new introductions to like thoughts. So it's kind of like a circle. Anywhere you can, like any kind of a pattern. When I talk about patterns, if you can see a pattern, any way you change, like any piece that you make different in the pattern, you change the pattern. So anywhere in this wheel that you can like get in and do something, you'll change your pattern. So you know that the saying that says, fake it till you make it.
Mhm.
You can be it till you believe it.
Mhm.
So if you have the thoughts of like, I can't have a new shirt, or I don't have time, or nobody's gonna see any of these thoughts, well, just like you can still come in and practice it.
Mhm.
Even if the thoughts aren't changing. Like just try it. Try a new shirt. Try
Yeah.
calling shirt. Try like something. You can
Yep.
just, so it's like it's a cycle that anywhere you're willing to get in will change it for you. And any
Mhm.
change you do is for the better, usually.
Mhm.
Usually change you do is for the better. That's what I say.
Yep. Yep. So I heard my friend said something to me just on Friday, and I need to ask her like specifically what the words were, but it was so impactful to me. And it was something around always strive for growth, but realize perfection only is for one person, and that's Christ. He's the only one that was perfect. But we always can strive for growth. Expect growth, but realize that perfection is only for one person. We are never reaching for perfection. We're only reaching to grow. So that's what we have for you today. Thank you guys for joining us, the ones that are here and the ones that are watching the replay. And I would love it if you were watching the replay and you just put #replay in the comments so that we could see that you're here watching the replay. And then if there's something that you guys are thinking of while you're watching this, that's like, how do I be a high value woman in this area? Like maybe it's, I don't know, something that you haven't heard here yet, like, yeah, that's on your mind. Drop it in the comments and we'll dig up some information and we'll talk about it. So this has been a super fun thing for us to do, and I've loved it. So we're just going to keep going. So, all right. Okay, we're signing off. We'll see you next week. Bye.